Okay, so here we are for our Cosmobiology Institute research meeting. This is a monthly meeting on usually the fourth Tuesday. This is Monday night, but tomorrow night's Christmas Eve. We decided to just move it a day earlier. I did not know if many people would show up, but we've got, what, 10, 11 people here, which is really nice. Um, Considering we're in the Christmas holidays. So these research meetings are designed to help all of us to work together on whatever ideas we have for researching astrology. This is the service of Cosmobiology Institute, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to figuring out if astrology produces measurable effects. Like, does astrology work outside of maybe some form of divination in which the person is involved in doing it? Like, do the rules, you might say objectively, actually work, any of the rules? And that's what we're dedicated to finding out and pursuing. Um, Lots of exciting research. And, it's a nonprofit organization. Thus far, we've been in operation, I think about a year, slowly growing. We're very parsimonious and efficient as a nonprofit. We have not spent any of the money donated yet. We've had three donations of $24,000. So we have some money in the bank that will be used for good purposes, but we're trying not to spend any on ourselves. We really want to make this a public service um, to have a revolution. Create. I mean, it would be revolutionary if astrology could be confirmed. I mean, that would just be mind blowing. And or we find out it can't, but the evidence is mounting that it can. So my idea is, and you can let me know. I mean, this is just all of us together. I'm just leading the discussion and everything. My idea is that we start, I don't want to do too much tonight because we are in the holidays and other people who would like to come can't be here. But by next meeting, a month from now, I think we can start doing research projects, putting into action the concepts that we're dealing with and assisting each other in doing research projects. We can do several simultaneously. We can focus on one in particular that we do together. We've had a number of meetings. We have information up on general issues in research. We've discussed some things. And I think it could be fun to dig in to actually doing a research project that most of us find interesting. Um, so we can start sorting out kinds of research projects we want to do, find out what you guys are doing, assisting you and having something we can all share in. So does the idea of actually doing research together sound good? To experience it, like not just talk about it, but let's do it. Um, so we can do something that we're all at least reasonably interested in, as well as supporting the specific projects people are doing. Does that sound good? Are we done with enough didactic professorial information? And let's like get our hands in there. I mean, you can talk about golf all day, but if you don't pick up the club and hit the ball, you're not playing golf. So I think it's, we can get our hands in and start doing something. Um, does that sound good? And I think the way I'll start is by finding out. I know Starlene has just started a research project. I can share my screen and show you the website she just put up. We can find out what some of us are doing or want to do. I'll bring up a list and we'll decide what we'll start doing. Let's do it. Let's change the world. Let's let's get this revolution going. It's already going. Let's take it to the next level. I personally think, I mean, I'm going to just say it out loud because I think it's obvious. I think that the evidence has grown to the point where it's becoming more and more obvious that there are certain things in astrology that actually do work outside of the participation of the astrologer. If I'm right, that's crazy. I mean, that's it's just like nuts. That's just more revolutionary than anything people could imagine. And we can establish that with statistics and all that good stuff. but at least let's find out. I think we're on track to do it through several research studies that have been done in the past. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen. I think I'll start with Starlene because I'm familiar with what she's doing. And we'll all share ideas either on what research you're doing or what you would want to do. And we'll lay out some basic principles for, what you can do right, what you can do wrong, et cetera, what's better or worse. So I'm going to share my screen and go ahead and use the chat. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Sometimes people forget to mute themselves and I start getting feedback, but I'll mute you if you do that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Share. By the way, welcome to everybody who's come in. Well, we're really doing well for a holiday season here. Got 13, 14 people here already. This is wonderful. Okay, I'm sharing my screen and I'm going to bring up a browser. And so Starlene just sent me the other, I think it was today or yesterday, that she put up her website for this research project. So let's start with that. As you know, let's find out what each other is doing. And I'm going to make a list. Oops, I don't want that. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of this.
Clean your computer. Did you want to bring your other one out?
Close this.
I'd rather have you come in the room.
Hold
I guess it's closed. It's closed. I'll follow you in there. I have to get a better chair to sit on.
Okay, let me close this. Okay. Our notes. I'm going to put here current research projects. And we can all work together or advise or collaborate on one or more of this. Starlene is starting research on ADHD. We also had a few from last meeting, but I'm going to start a new list of research projects. Let's see what Starlene is doing. And you don't have to actually be doing anything. If you just want to do something, let's make a list and let's start doing it together. So Starlene, what is the name of your website again? For the
It's researchadhd.com.
Okay, so she made a new website just for this research project, researchadhd.com. So obviously she has some skills in creating websites. I think it's a gorgeous website. I love it. And I mean, I think you all look at it and say, wow, cool. So research ADHD, innovative research for ADHD. Join us in advancing the understanding of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Your participation is essential to uncovering new insights. Together, we strive for a brighter future. Participate in our survey, in our study. So I could click on that and go right into it, but just to scroll down, videos on ADHD, what is ADHD, learn about us. So this is fun. Scroll down, beautiful graphics, advancing ADHD solutions from research to results. Are you guys impressed? I am. Does it help to have a nice, modern, clean website? You bet it does. I mean, if you're trying to engage people, this is obviously something that draws us into it. And then 4 steps, participating is easy. And then there's some questions. What is the purpose? So some details. Okay. If I go into participate now, we can join the study. So this is something where she's collecting data. If any of you know someone with ADHD, you can encourage them to go to this site and fill out the email. It detects my email address is, and you start filling out, putting your birth information, what's the source of the birth time, the birthplace, etc. And then you go to the next form. And she's using Google Docs for the form. So we have all these wonderful, mostly free resources for doing things like creating forms. And these are all things we can learn about. If you're interested in doing research, if you want to collect data, you can see that Starlene is already doing this, so we learn from each other. So if your research involves collecting data, you can see how Starlene has done it, and you can do something similar. And we can all help each other. She can tell you what she's doing to make this. But I see she's using Google Docs to get the information. You don't have to build things from scratch anymore. There's usually tools you can use for most things you want to get done. Some of them are free, some you have to pay for, etc. So very exciting. She's collecting the data to do the research. Starlene, what else do you want to say about your research project to tell us about it and see if any of the rest of us want to get involved or can learn from what you're doing?
Right. So, well, the reason I'm collecting data is because in the databases that we have access to, we don't have enough people with ADHD to study. Otherwise, we could just do it that way, which is a lot of research has been done that way. So I decided since that was a hurdle that I would just go ahead and collect the data. I'm hopeful. I'm also in the form, if you went through it and filled it out, you'll see that I ask the symptoms and such of the ADHD person because it presents differently for people. And I'm hypothesizing that maybe that will show up differently in the planetary connections or the vibrations or whatever it is that I look at. So I'm really trying to go in this just looking to see what I find, though, not necessarily with a preconceived notion of it. So that's how I'm doing it. And hopefully if I come to a good confidence in my results, I will be able to then maybe look at different ways in which I can help people. So or with that knowledge, either write a book or share something on the website about it or whatnot. I will end up eventually sharing whatever results are on the blog part of the website that I haven't created yet, but I will end up doing that. So I think that'll be helpful.
Okay, so your research sounds like it's going to be largely exploratory at first. There's two types of research, exploratory and confirmatory. And actually, that's a spectrum from like more purely exploratory to more purely confirmatory. Confirmatory means you're going to confirm a theory. We call that a strict hypothesis test. And it's a spectrum. There's always some assumptions of what you're exploring, but I think you said you're going to go in not with a preconceived, clear idea, so you're going to
Right.
explore possibilities. And I'm familiar with the kinds of astrology you do, so I already have an idea. But for everybody, and also whatever details I'm not aware of, what kinds of things will you be looking for? Some people are Vedic astrologers, some are Hellenistic, some are whatever.
Right.
I know you use a lot of vibrational. What kind of things are you going to be looking for?
Right. Well, first we're looking at planetary pairs to see what happens there, and then the triplets in the vibrations to see if we could find planetary patterns within the vibrations. We're also doing some research. I found this only book, which I couldn't believe because ADHD seems to be a hot topic. It's the only book I could find on ADHD and astrology. And this is Hidalgo, asteroid, that she says that it shows up. And I was reading it with Michelle, and she was looking at my chart and some other people's chart that she knows that has ADHD, and it was showing up. And I'm like, okay, so maybe we should include that. I wouldn't have necessarily included it because I didn't even know anything about that asteroid, but maybe there's something there. So that would be maybe the preconceived part of it. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens because this book is very simple. It's much more simple than my type of research. But we'll see what happens. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. But I am very open to what it might be. We looked at houses because this book did talk about houses, and the 32 people I think that we have in the database did seem to have a significant number of planets in Earth signs, but we don't have enough people to really, verify that because it's only like 32 people, and in the houses too. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be looking at planetary pairs and three planet combinations in we call vibrations or harmonics, which
Right.
means the idea there is that these big numbers, like if planets are in even 23 vibration, like another word for vibration is harmonic, means planets are distributed in 20 thirds of a circle. So that's not an idea that most people think would be important, but it's an idea that you think is important. So you're going to be looking at pairs, two planets and three planet combinations in all kinds of possible vibrations. You're going to be looking at Hidalgo. You're going to add that in, an asteroid, and you're going to also look at house and zodiac sign placements. So um, without any, extremely strict ideas, those are the kinds of things you're going to be looking at. And to use the research terminology, you're going to build a model using these astrological variables. And then after building a model, I'm guessing that you will want to test the model with new data, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's her plan. She would also like thinking further down the road, if she does build a model that seems to work well and works well with new data, she's looking forward to applying the findings if she's able to do that. And in any case, the results will be shared. This is all important because what's motivating you? Like research is a lot of work. Some people have a dream that they can find something and help.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have ADHD, so that's my motivation. I have family members that have ADHD. It's something that runs in families, generally speaking. That's what scientists have said anyway. It could be a genetic component. So I want to know for myself. I didn't get diagnosed till I was later in life. So, but that diagnosis was extremely eye-opening for me because I always knew it was different, but I didn't understand why. And then it was like, oh, this makes sense. So I want to be able to see that. And if I can help people understand it better themselves, then, that's great. I want to do that. So yeah, that's my motivation.
Okay, and so we've talked about this in the last meeting, and from the research methodology standpoint, does it sound good that she's studying something that she's had personal concern, issues with? Has ADHD. It's in her family. Is that a good thing in general, for research? Does it bias you because you're personally involved, or
I
what are
mean,
the trade-offs? In general, is that a good,
I
I
think it is because it gives you motivation, but I could have bias. That's possible at any point. I'm going to try not to go in it with any kind of bias, but I think it's a good reason to research something, because if you're passionate about it, then you're going to stick with it and you're going to, go through the nitty-gritty parts of the research, because it's not easy.
So do you guys agree with her? She thinks it's good overall. It's fantastic. In research methodology, when the researcher is very passionate, very meaningful, we love that. Research methodology is not all about just statistics and p-values and whatever. There's a lot of subjective guidelines and other things. And one of the guidelines is that research is brutal, especially on a small scale where you're not getting paid and you don't have, research grants and whatever. It's brutal. I mean, you're going to spend hundreds, possibly thousands of hours going
Yeah.
through, data. And if you're not excited, you're going to give up. So if it means something to you, it's much more likely that you will do it. I know that Starlene's been involved in deeply with research before, so she knows what's involved. She's not naive about it. She knows it's a long, hard road. Why is it a long, hard road? Because nobody has ever validated anything in astrology. And you and I, a bunch of goofy people in our garage, are going to invent something that's going to be world shaking, right?
I think so.
If,
I
if,
think
if
it will be.
I think we'll
Yeah.
do it. I think
Yeah.
a bunch, ruffians out there are going to do this. But what I'm trying, the universities have millions and millions and millions of dollars, thousands of people researching things. We're just a ragtag team trying to
That's
make a
okay.
breakthrough. And um, so, uh, yeah, so, being motivated is important because, it's a long haul. It's a long haul, even in university settings and other places for different reasons. Okay, so this sounds really exciting. She's already got a beautiful website up. This is really, really awesome. Now, if if you're excited about what Starlene's doing and you want to participate in it, then you just contact her and say, I'm interested, but you know what? I'm not so interested in your vibrational and I do Vedic or whatever. Talk about it. And maybe she'll say, cool, let's add that as, you can do that, whatever. So we're all here just to pursue this dream. We could figure
Yeah.
something out. And so that's what Starlene's doing. I think it's totally awesome. And it's something that a few of us or all of us could work together on. And then we can go into the details. How do you explore? What tools do you use? How is this done?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
the actual details of it. But what I want to do is I want to get a list. So we have number one. I'm going to put this in bold. Starlene is starting ADHD. Isn't that cool? Are you guys impressed? I am. Um, okay. Anybody else? There's 14 of us, including me. Anybody else have something you've started researching or would like to research? And I don't have a lot of comments on Starlene's thing because it's pretty sound. If you start going off into things that are very bad research designs, that's fine. We're all here to learn, but we'll straighten that out straight away right now so that you don't get off on the wrong foot. Um, but any level of knowledge of research is fine. Um, Sometimes people who are not good at research methods make the greatest discoveries because they know the content. They're great astrologers, and they know what to look for, and they're able to find it. We're all bringing different skill sets. Okay, anybody else want to take the mic and share what you're doing or want to do?
I would be glad to. This is Greg Howard.
Hey, Greg. Okay, tell us what you're interested in or already have stepped into.
I just wrapped up 20 years of studies and research. And what I'm going to be looking for is someone to help because of the risk of personal bias. And it's always just been my eyes. I want to see that somebody else can take the hypothesis, apply it, and make it work. The research that I've done is actually a different way of interpreting a natal chart. And it's based on um, teachings from Dane Rudhyar, Alan Leo, and the Edgar Cayce readings. And where I differ from the mainstream is that I view each planet with its house sign and the house it rules as a spiritual path, a specific lesson for growth and development. And what's unique about what I found, I mean, it took me a lot of experimenting to get the symbols together to where they work properly and fit the rules, but I can take my planetary, take a planet, interpret it, link it to the biographical information that it relates to, and then I cast predictive charts for those particular events. And it's usually right on. Give you an example, one of the case studies that I've had presented to groups is the chart of Amelia Earhart. She's got a Moon-Pluto conjunction, which correlates to her grandparents' death and left their family destitute. She's got Moon and Pluto in her second house. And that was a life-changing event for her. She's got in her seventh house, Saturn conjunct Uranus, but she was always reluctant to marry because of the incident that happened when her grandparents died and her parents got divorced because her father was unreliable, and she vowed she would never put herself in that position. But then when she disappeared on her around the world flight, the day she disappeared, her flight, the planning, everything corresponds to her Mars Jupiter conjunction in her fifth house. The sun rules her fifth house. The day that she disappeared, she had a progressed sun conjunct Mars and Jupiter, and transiting sun was sextile Mars and Jupiter. And I'm talking within a few minutes of an orb. And everything that I've done in my research on the different charts that I've selected, I'm able to verify that the astrology, the natal astrology works because it lines up exactly with life events that are supported by the predictive charts. Whether it's, if I don't have a day, if I know the year or season, I can use progression, solar arcs. If I actually have the day, then I'll work the transits in there too. But I've been doing this for a long time with several charts, and I've finally at a point where I'm satisfied with it, but I need some people to help me who would want to. The difficulty in the research is you have to get 2 or 3 biographies and really learn about that person's life and look for dates and events to correspond. I don't want to just say, well, this person's going to, they're going to develop their emotional strength by undergoing financial ups and downs. I really want those ups and downs to correspond to a transit or progression or that's triggering those planets. So it's a closed loop, and I've been able to do that. I've actually I presented when I used to be on the board member of the Ohio Valley NCGR in Cincinnati. It disbanded about 10 years ago. But I was often as I was conducting my research, I was presenting my findings there at the meetings. But I actually have a presentation that I'm going to email to the Institute in about another week. I'm getting everything put together where I've answered all your questionnaires on your site.
Right.
And then I have an explanation of what my research is, and I have an example case study. So I'll send that in, and then if you like what you see, I could even do a PowerPoint or something to the group to really go into details of what I'm doing and see if anybody wants to participate.
Okay. So I'm going to paraphrase some key points, and like I did with Starlene, and you can correct me if I go off base, but here we have a practicing astrologer. I mean, somebody who's applying the ideas, works on it for decades, polishes their ideas, refines it, analyzes, and they just swear that this is working. They see it. Now, if Greg sees it, he's seeing stuff in the natal chart, Moon-Pluto correlates with problems at home and with parents often, and progressed sun doing certain things, and when she disappears. For many astrologers, when you're doing it, it looks like these rules are working. So if they're working, let's apply some modern research methods to confirm it.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the situation. Is that a good basis for now going to the next step, as Greg feels it is, to now begin using modern research methods to confirm that what he's experiencing is valid? Is there anything missing? Answer, no. Perfect. This is exciting. This is what we call content expertise. You take someone who has content expertise, and they haven't just read a few books, they haven't whatever. They've been working with this, refining it. Now let's test it. Perfect. This is very exciting. Now, how do we do it? So a few pointers, or a few, concepts to think about. Generally, once you get into modern research methods, you have to almost always narrow down to one tiny part of the whole thing. It's just the nature of the beast. It's hard to evaluate a lot of things all at once. So typically, it's a slow process. That's why universities are spending billions of dollars on research in the soft sciences, and the hard sciences. It's just a long process to actually evaluate something using modern research methods. So we can take the forecasting or we can take the natal. I wouldn't recommend doing both. I mean, I can be talked out of it, but just off the top of my head. We pick some part of what you're doing and we try to think about how we can evaluate it. So here's my thoughts. One, pick some detail of what Greg is doing. Two, evaluate his, we can call it a hypothesis, or we can just call it his theory, whatever we want to call it. Evaluate his theory in some way. Can be qualitative, quantitative, or both. Qualitative research means that your final results are not numbers. Qualitative research often uses numbers in the process. Doesn't mean you never use numbers or count anything, but your final analysis is not numerical. So for example, when we did research on zodiac signs to determine, is Aries really pioneering? Is Taurus really stubborn? Does Gemini talk a lot, etc.? We evaluated that with modern research methods. And the evaluation was qualitative. We used numbers, we counted things, but the final interpretation was qualitative. We took the people who have the most Aries in a database, we read their biographies, and we just made an argument for whether there was an emphasis on pioneering, innovation, etc. And we would compare it to other signs. Now, this might sound very, very loose and like it's not really modern research methods. Isn't that what everybody does? The big difference is it removes selection bias and it focuses on the most extreme cases. By removing selection bias and focusing on the most extreme cases, according to modern research methods, we have much more confidence in your conclusions than we would in tens of thousands of cases where you're using selection bias. Selection bias means you have something to do with the charts you're interpreting. And so by going through a database and having the software pick out the people with the most planets in Aries, you remove selection bias. I, the researcher, have nothing to do with who I'm interpreting. Nothing. It's whatever the software said was the strongest Aries by the rules I gave it. And because they're extreme cases, they give me much more information than other people. This has been used to make discoveries in genetics research and other fields. But beyond that, it was very loose. The reason it was loose is because I wanted it to be more exploratory. And some of the conclusions were rather radical, and you might not agree with them. But according to modern research methods, we have higher confidence in what the results were than what astrologers think. Isn't that crazy? Like you might say, well, I've done 1,000,000 charts. Well, it's selection bias. According to modern research methods, that doesn't tell us much. So we found out we could make no argument that Aquarians are eccentric and radical. We could not make a strong argument that Pisces is mystical and more artistic. So those ideas, we lost confidence in those ideas, but we found other things that they do have in common. The idea that Aquarius is ideological and group-oriented was very strongly supported. So we have a bunch of ideas out there and we come to a conclusion. So we can do something similar with what Greg has. We can pick out, I mean, there's just a lot of ways to approach this. Another thing that's done, this is what the Galkowans did and what Vincent Godbout is doing, is counting the number of times certain words show up in the biography. So you count how many times, like if you're expecting Moon-Pluto to be associated with like trauma or parental issues or something, we can count those, or we can just leave it looser and just see if there's any emphasis on it. So basically, we have to pick out a few variables, either things in the natal chart, and at a beginning stage, we could just pick the people with the strongest Moon-Pluto aspects in the database and see if there's a reasonable argument that they exhibit the qualities that you say they have. We can also compare those to the people who have no Moon-Pluto and see if those themes are not showing up as much. But just by doing that, that would be a start. Another thing we can do is data visualization is often a good thing to do. So we could create a graph of when, for example, the Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Amelia Earhart's chart is activated by progressions over her lifetime, and we can weight them, and we can see if that graph actually does peak at the time she went missing. And if we can find other people with similar configurations, we can go through the database of famous people with Mars-Jupiter, see when theirs is activated and see if that correlates. So we could use data visualization tools that help us see if it really does peak then. Because when you take transiting Mercury, Venus, Mars, you take a bunch of other aspects, how conspicuous is the graph even for her? We can put numbers to this and actually see the graph. And that would confirm that, yes, it works for her. So we can use data visualization, we can use extreme case sampling, or we can do a statistical analysis, but it's a little bit difficult with behavior. You could go through the database first and have a checkbox, a yes, no, for whether people had trauma with their parents or not. And it's called a logistic regression, where the outcome is binary. You see if the person has had trauma and problems with parents, and you see if the Moon-Pluto correlates with that result. So we could take, for example, the top, say, 50 people in the database with Moon-Pluto and the bottom 50 who have no Moon-Pluto, and then score them for whether, or you can weight them, say, from 1 to 10 for how much parental problems and early childhood trauma or whatever it is you're expecting, and we can see if it actually correlates. Like with Amelia Earhart, it would work. And then if it does not correlate, you can look at the individual cases and modify your formula, modify your theory to make it fit. Because your first attempt to verbalize it might be weak. And so you can refine your theory. So these are different ways we can go about doing it. Does this make sense, Greg, what I'm saying, like ways to proceed?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. The challenge for this is going to be, this has nothing to do with personality or behavior or that type of behavior. But I'll wait till I can send you everything and you look over it and then you'll understand what I'm getting at. I'm really trying to, this is kind of a follow-up to the work you did with the signs. I have a very different view of the signs based on things I've read from Alan Leo, Dane Rudhyar, and that if we're going to pick one thing, I'll put a proposal together as far as how the signs actually function in the zodiac chart or the horoscope. I've just found them to have a very different meaning than types of behavior, or that you're going to be like this, or you have tendencies toward this. It really, Alan Leo said the signs is the accumulation of your beliefs and behaviors you've accumulated over previous incarnations. And the real intent of our incarnation here, when that shows up tied to a planet, is to overcome that. You're going to have resistance, obstacles related to the house, and those can't be solved until that behavioral issue is resolved. For instance, Aries, like Aries does not make you courageous. Aries usually makes you the opposite when you're born. And when you have a planet in Aries, that means it's your lesson to develop that courage or develop that initiative to actually get off your butt and do something.
Right.
Which you found a lot of that in your own study. But
Right.
it's just the way it's approached when you're trying to interpret it. For instance, in your videos, you said the signs are the lens through which we view the world. But based on what my research has shown, that lens is filtered through previous experiences, old habits, that your mission in this life is to work on those and correct them. And so it's a very different approach than does, this sign or this planet cause a certain behavior. It has more to do with your spirit evolving spiritually,
Right.
through resolving crises, which is how Dane Rudhyar explained it.
Right. So in this case, it's very difficult to measure how things are working, because it's a process of overcoming things and facing things. So what
Yes.
can work well in this kind of research would be a qualitative study, an extreme case sampling study, similar to what I did with zodiac signs, where you would remove selection bias, and according to how you want to weight things, no weighting scheme is perfect, doesn't need to be perfect. Um, all you need to do is have some way to pick out whatever you want to look at. Like if you think a certain sign and house combination makes it more conspicuous, then you could say, I want the people who have the most planets in Aries and the most planets in the first house, or whatever.
Yes.
You could combine things, and you have, you know, um, you could require the ascendant to be Aries and the ruler to be in certain houses. You can make up your own rules, and you can make up different sets of rules, like different ways of visualizing it. And then you get this list of the people who are strongest by whatever sets of rules you've made. And then usually what we do is we take only the ones who have a lot of biography, because you need a lot of biography, and just do the thing you always do. Just explain how you see that theme operating in their lives. You could contrast it with the same number of people who score extremely lowest on it, and show that those themes are not showing up in their lives. That would give you a way of confirming that you're not just making sense of anything, like.
Yeah. What Ken was just hit my. I think what I will probably go with, well, I think would workable. You did extreme case on the signs. I'd like to do a similar study with the houses. If you have 3 or 4 planets in the second house, Does the biography show they had a series of financial crises or setbacks that they had to work through? If they have 4 planets in the seventh house, was the life plagued with relationship issues? But part of this is that the natal house isn't where a planet expresses itself. It's the battlefield where the planet has to overcome crisis after crisis as the way that it grows. That's the way the planet's function develops.
Okay, so here's what I would suggest. I think we're making a lot of progress here. You can look at just one thing, planet in a house.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, it's up to you, because you have the researcher decides, research's got their idea of what's important. You could also combine it with things. Like if that second house becomes even stronger, like do you want to count up the number of planets in the second house? Do you want to give more weight to the ruler of the ascendant in the second house? Do you want to give more weight to sun and moon? Do you want to combine second house with something else? Like you could give, for example, 10 points to sun in the second house, 10 to moon in the second house, 20 points to ruler of the ascendant in the second house. Then you could give 2 points to something in a particular sign or a certain sign on the cusp. If you think that will further emphasize a certain thing. So you can come up with any weighting scheme you want. And then what we can do it right here in our meeting. We could do it probably next month. We can run it. I can set up the formula. I would do it in the Sirius software. I don't know. We could set it up in other software if any of you know how to do it in other programs. We can run it, produce the list, and then you would have that data to work with. So this is a study that we could actually go through the procedure relatively quickly. The analysis could go on. I mean, reading all these biographies and everything could go on and on and on and on. But the basic data we could produce fairly quickly. And again, we could make several different formulas, like just planets in the second house. We could do it with different house systems. We can set it up multiple ways. And so you can explore the different possibilities if you want to. But if you're sure you want to use Placidus houses and you're sure of this, then just do what you feel strongest about. But if you feel, like you're not sure or there's different ways of doing it, we can run separate, do it several ways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So Greg, you can think about that. I think you guys have my email address. You can email me. I'll just put it up here. Santino@astrologydc.com. If you come up with a formula that you like, I need to do this for someone else. I've been procrastinating, so I'll do it for him as well. And we can do it right in these meetings. And that will help all of us, get some ideas of how you can do the research procedure. Okay. I love this. This is exactly what we want to do is some astrologers feel like their rules actually work. Let's see. We can get greater confidence that they are working or are not working. Okay. I think we're good for now, Greg.
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I know. It's
Okay.
tricky. Okay, cool. I love it. This is what we want to do. Cosmobiology Institute. Let's take all of this wisdom and knowledge of astrologers and let's see. Let's check it out. Let's see what's happening. Okay. Anybody else want to share? And again, Greg's expertise is in a system of interpretation. He's watched my videos. He's got some idea of research methods, um, and just wants some pointers and help in proceeding. That's what we're here for. Beautiful, wonderful. All right, let's get some other ideas, and then we can decide what we want to do in our future meetings. If we all want to join together and implement Greg's idea, or maybe you're similar to Greg, but you have a different set of ideas. We can do your version as well. Maybe your astrological analysis is not concrete, but it's extremely meaningful and therapeutic to the person. No matter what the situation is, there's a research design that can help us get better confidence in whether the rules work. Okay, who else do we want to look at here? Anybody else have research they're already doing or would like to do? Let's make a list.
Santino, I'm working on Black Moon Lilith, as you know.
Yes, so let's put Michelle. Um, and you're already deep into it.
I'm deep in, but I have another project that I look at every now and then too.
All right, let me just say, already conducting this research, and this is exploratory extreme case research, I think.
Yes.
And you've defined rules for what you're looking at with Black Moon
Mhm.
Lilith. Um, okay, and basically just to get people aware, you're doing a very broad, extremely broad-based, or maybe not. You're looking at Black Moon Lilith, conjunct certain, you started with Venus, I think, certain planets with the
I've
smallest.
actually gone through all of the planets, moon, all the way through Pluto, sun, moon, every planet. I've put in conjunctions with Black Moon Lilith, and I'm looking at anything that has a very tiny orb, 5 degrees or less, or 5 minutes.
So you're taking all the people who have a planet conjunct Black Moon Lilith with a 5-minute orb or less, and
Correct.
you're using only AA data or you're using also
Nope, just AA.
AA. So you decide what accuracy of charts you
Mhm.
want. She's doing AA data. And how many, and only if there's sufficient biography to study. So how
Correct.
many people do you end up with that have Black Moon Lilith conjunct a planet within a 5-minute orb and have a lot of
There's
biography? Is it like usually 5 or 6 or 20
Oh,
or
there's more than that. I have plenty to choose from for each planet, believe it or not.
okay, so in order to do the extreme case sampling and removing all selection bias, one good way to do it is just take the smallest orbs.
Hmm.
You can't you can't arbitrarily select somebody. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to do
Correct.
this one because I love their music or whatever, so I want to look at that." That would violate the rules of removing selection bias. So basically, you're just taking the smallest orb, and it never goes more than 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll just put your conjunct every planet with smallest orb. And is that all you doing with Black Moon Lilith? You're just looking at conjunctions to planets, or have you done
At
anything?
this point, I've started to look at the Priapus a little bit with it just because it's the counterpoint to Lilith. But I feel like that's going to be separate research that will happen once this is complete. But I'm essentially looking for what her true fundamental energy process is. And I am seeing patterns that are emerging. So that's really exciting.
Okay, and in case what Black Moon Lilith is it's the apogee of the moon. It's where the moon is farthest away from Earth, and Priapus is the perigee of the moon, where the moon is closest to the Earth. Um, and we're astrologers, so we like to use cool names for things instead of apogee. So we call it Black Moon Lilith. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, if priests can speak in Latin, we can make cool words too. All right, so that's what they are. Um, Okay, and then what you're doing is you didn't come in with, you have ideas about what other people think about Black Moon Lilith, but you were pretty open to any possibility. So you have ideas from astrologers, but you are open to any consistent theme in the lives of the people. Is that correct?
Correct. And what I'm finding seems to be vastly different from what we typically hear.
Right. The consistent themes you can find are new. They're not things other astrologers have talked very much about.
No,
Um, and thus you've had to do a lot of work because you came up with something new, checking against all 10 planets to see if it continues to be consistent is important. So if you're doing exploratory research, like Michelle is, and she's got a very simple idea. She's just going to see who has Sun conjunct Black Moon Lilith with the smallest orb. That's fine. You just have to have some clear rule. Generally, we recommend not using a lot of astrology ideas because then we don't know if the problem is with your astrological ideas or the problem is with Black Moon Lilith. By keeping it simple, we come up with um, a very simple situation where we can't get confused. It's either there's something consistent or there isn't. But Michelle, I think you went on and had to do 10 planets because you came up with a new idea and you really want to see if it's consistent or did it just happen to fit the people with the first planet you
correct.
checked, right?
Yep. Yes, and I'm finding a consistent theme through all 10.
Right. So you're getting a consistent idea what Black Moon Lilith is. So each research project will take you on its own little trip. And the trip here is that she found out, wow, I'm seeing something nobody's talking about. Therefore, she applies the extreme case sampling to all 10 planets, sees if she can keep a consistent argument that this is what Black Moon Lilith is doing. She's able to do that. So this follows the modern research methods as giving us a potential meaning of Black Moon Lilith that is worth pursuing. What astrologers say is not really important in modern research methods. It's only important in the way that Greg is doing it as a foundation for then investigating. It's extremely important. Let me say that again. Your opinion or any astrologer's opinion about what works according to modern research methods is vitally important as material to do research. On its own, it's pretty worthless. Okay? Because in previous fields like medicine, when they've used the opinion of experts, they very often just aren't true. So they need to be confirmed. On the other hand, if you do research based on what the experts say, some of them are correct and it helps you find the answer. So it's a basis, like Greg might be right. There's a reasonably good chance he's right. So we want to use his ideas and check them out. By themselves, they don't mean much, but as a basis for research, they're very valuable. Does that make sense? This is according to modern research methods. You don't have to agree with it. This is just how the modern world works. Okay, so that's exciting. When are you going to be able to share your findings on Black Moon Lilith?
I'm hoping to wrap this up by summertime at the absolute latest.
And and this is a very simple research design. How many hours have you put into this very roughly? So
Countless,
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 like 500 maybe?
thousands. No, 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 no. No, eat, sleep, breathe, research. But I will be honest and say, I tend to go in these tremendous waves where I'll be obsessed with research for days, weeks at a time, and then I put it down for a week and come back to it. So I can't say that it's been, consistent in terms of a timeline.
So this very simple research project, if someone puts in 10 hours a week for a year, that's 500 hours. You've put in over an average of 10 hours a week over a year, probably over 20 hours a week if it was over a
Correct.
year.
And I've been working on this for about a year and a half.
Okay.
So this has been going on for a while.
And it goes in waves, but on average, you've put in at least 20 hours a week for over a year. So you're way over 1,000 hours that you've put into this research project. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I get these brilliant ideas and start going off in another direction. So I have a little project going too on Alcyone and Electra
Right.
because everyone loves the Pleiades. So I
Right.
started that. I haven't touched that in a while, but it's still there. If anyone's interested in that research as well, or
So
if anyone would like to join
in
me.
addition to over 1,000 hours on researching Lilith, you've spent time researching the big stars in the Pleiades. Um, okay, so it's good for us to share this because it gives you an idea of to gain high confidence in these ideas. Again, we're a ragtag team without a lot of funding, one or two people working on it, trying to make historical breakthroughs. And so sometimes to do that, you can get kind of obsessed and spend insane numbers of hours doing it. Okay. And that's what Cosmobiology Institute is excited about is people doing the real work to test these ideas in using formal procedures. This is a formal procedure, and then other people can critique it. We'll see, she'll document what software she used, what the results were, what she found. You can go through it and you can make arguments that she didn't do it very well or whatever you want to do. But we now have a platform for working with it with clear rules. And what is so you've also been doing research on Halcyon and other large stars in the Pleiades,
Electra. Mhm.
Electra. Um,
Michelle,
Yes.
this is Richard.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. I have Black Moon Lilith at 1757 of Aries, and my sun is at 1842 Aries, and my Venus is at 1637 Aries. Would that qualify in your study?
I could certainly take a look. Right now, I'm looking at 5 minutes or less.
yeah, she's
5
looking at
minutes.
5 minutes, not 5 degrees.
Yeah, okay. And that doesn't fit.
No. So one of the things using modern research methods is we don't generalize beyond what we have observed. You proceed very conservatively. So her findings so far would not generalize to that situation. So we would have, if you're following strict modern research methods, the researcher would say, I have no information on that because it's way outside the bounds of what she's researching.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Modern research methods very conservative. You have a certain domain of stuff that you've observed and generalizing beyond that is pretty much guesswork. There's certain rules, and that's the rule. I mean, you can have your own intuition. Everybody's got their own personal intuition, and that's good. You should never drop your personal intuition, but that's just your personal thing. As far as shared knowledge goes, it doesn't generalize to it. But researchers have lots of personal opinions, just like everybody. It's just not part of the game of of shared knowledge. Um, okay. And did you have yet another research project, or is that it, Michelle?
That's it for now. Just the fixed stars. I started to run data on Eros and Psyche too. I'm a crazy person when it comes to research. I get these little moments where I just have to go and run the data and take a peek at things. I haven't done much with it at this point, but
Yeah,
I'm just curious about everything.
I know I do it all the time. I'm looking at the chart of a famous person. I was teaching a class and um, we looked at Adolf Hitler and I was saying, look, Adolf Hitler doesn't work. We have no idea why this guy was Adolf Hitler. And I'm looking at vibrational chart, and we found one and it was like, whoa, that could be him. It was 13 times 13. Well, naturally, that night I ran 13 times 13. Extreme case sampling was up till 3 in the morning and, got up the next day, was at it again and got very strong support that, yeah. So sometimes you just get inspired by something
Yes,
and you just
definitely.
can't resist checking it out. Then I made a video about 169 on what was found. Okay, so that can happen as well.
The other thing that I'm curious about with the Black Moon Lilith, while I'm running all of the data, and the conjunctions, that's just to the natal chart. I want to see once I find what the fundamental energy process is, if that really shows in the strongest vibrational charts of the client.
Right. So in this extreme case sampling research, the main reason we use extreme case sampling, I mentioned two reasons. One is it removes selection bias, which is huge. As long as you have selection bias, according to modern research methods, we have almost no confidence in what you're saying. That's a prerequisite to have any confidence at all. So we get rid of selection bias. That's essential. And then we also have the extreme cases, which are more, we call information rich. They tell us more. Now, beyond that, the extreme case sampling doesn't tell us much. So the general rule is you can use anything you want to make sense of what you're seeing. So, for example, you could develop a theory, or you could, include the theory that whatever vibrational charts pick up the most other planets. So if you have Sun conjunct Black Moon Lilith, and in 13 vibration, the Sun is aspected to 5 other planets, you can create a new formula where you define what an aspect is, what the orb is, um, to the Sun and find out what vibrations it's strongest in. And you can do it to Alcyone as well, and you can add both of them.
Mhm.
And then you would say this is the vibration it's strongest in, and see if you can make an argument that that vibration is coloring the meaning.
Yeah, and my strongest vibe is 147. And I'm curious about this too because Black Moon Lilith shows in a spreading grand trine in that vibration that includes 6 planets.
This is your chart you're talking about?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's look at it. Let me see if you're in here. Um, okay, what's your birth datum, Michelle?
It's July 2nd, 1973,
Okay,
1:50 p.m.,
okay.
Syracuse, New York.
Okay, if I entered that right, that's a 17 Libra 1 rising.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to add Black Moon Lilith.
And it's the true.
Okay, so I'm Lilith, and I'll include aspect lines. True. Okay. All right. All right, so true Black Moon Lilith at 25 Sag 34. Okay, so you would not come out in the database as a super Lilith person, but you're looking to see where it shows up, and you found in 147 vibe,
147, that's my strongest vibration.
you have a grand trine, you have Neptune, Sun, Mercury, and Mars all within 3 degrees. Oh my God. Crazy strong in a very tight trine to Jupiter using this particular wheel, using this uses the orbs that those of us who use vibrational astrology use, which is what Michelle is using, what I use, and also Starlene uses. The lines are thick, showing all this is extremely strong. True will Black Moon Lilith at 9 Virgo is strong. So the Moon Neptune is particularly strong. Anyway, they're all there. Now this is the strongest vibration when you use one of the features in Sirius to see what strongest vibes are.
Yes.
Yeah, so you use that feature in Sirius to see what your strongest vibes are.
Mm-hmm.
And according to it, let's look at that. So if I go to listings, harmonic patterns listings number 1, this is one way of seeing what vibes are strong. You see that 147 has a 4-degree orb. So based on the smallest orb, the next one is a 5-degree orb, then an 8-degree orb. So it has the strongest 4-planet configuration. So that's one way of defining a strong vibe, right?
Right.
And 147 is 7 times 7 times 3. So very often your research will involve playing around. It's not all statistics and numbers. You investigate, you explore, you see what's going on. And then just like we talked about with Greg, he's got ideas and then we decide how do we formulate that. So you don't have to, some people think, oh, I'm doing research, I'm going to turn into a robot, like, oh, now I do my statistic. No, it's not like that. You let yourself rock and roll, man. Just let it go. And then you decide what you want to quantify and come up with. But the more you use your intuition and the more you use your imagination and your experience the more you'll find things. So Michelle's thinking, well, let me look at my one. Her strongest vibe happens to have Black Moon Lilith very, very strong in 7 times 7 times 3. And so you can use your personal experience. There's nothing wrong with anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is wonderful. It's just by itself, you can't conclude a lot. But it's what we use to know what to look for. You all follow me? Because if you don't know what to look for, you just look forever. It's like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. But it's your expertise as an astrologer and your observations that tell you, oh, that makes sense to me. So you use your personal experience, your anecdotal evidence, and you say, I'm going to formalize that in my research. So it's often the basis of what to research. So a lot of times you hear researchers say, well, anecdotal evidence, it doesn't mean anything. That's true. It doesn't mean anything except it can tell you what to look for. And so that's what Michelle is doing. She's saying, oh my God, that's interesting. And so you have your own personal opinion based on your research and your understanding of 7 times 7 times 3 of what this means for you, right, Michelle?
Correct. And the funny thing is, when I began the research, I wasn't even paying attention to my 147 vibe because I didn't plug Lilith into that. It just happened to be this surprise added bonus.
Right. Yeah, there's lots of coincidences and things that happen. So, I mean, might be one of the reasons you got interested in it at all. And just for fun,
Right.
since we're astrologers and since you have done the extreme case sampling, uh, how do you interpret this in your chart? Is
In
it
this
okay
chart in particular,
in your chart, like if you don't mind sharing, I mean, if you don't want to share it, that's
yeah,
fine. But like, does this mean something to you? And if so, can you share what it means?
it does. So I'm finding that Black Moon Lilith is quite humanitarian, but there are pieces of the how do I explain it? Let me put this in, I guess, in a simpler term. The humanitarian piece is not just about connecting to something larger than ourselves out into the community, but I feel that it has to do with literally connecting to God, spirit, the universe, the divine, whatever it is that you choose to call it, higher power, source. I'll call it source. Um, so with Black Moon Lilith right here, creating this spreading grand trine and having Neptune along with Mercury, Mars right there, and the Sun along with Jupiter. Um, for people that are close to me, they know this about me, but I am very much attached to magic and the rules and the science and the art of magic, literally magic, like setting intentions, ritual tools. I'm a ritualist. So I'm finding Black Moon Lilith. I don't know. That's my interpretation anyway
Right.
of where I'm seeing this
You're,
show up in my life.
and what is your profession? You're a, what do you call it?
I'm an intuit. I'm a medium. I commune with spirit all day in consultations. I do readings and tarot and mediumship.
Right. So you're a medium and you
Mm.
also do rituals.
Yes.
And since this is 7 times 7 times 3, which is inclined to rituals and
Right.
quiet meditative things, and with Black Moon Lilith, with the interpretation that you have attached to it, it makes perfect sense
Hmm.
that this is what you do. Am I
Yes.
saying that properly?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question. Do people with a conspicuous Black Moon Lilith, are they usually like conscious, or can it be unconscious that they have this like interest in a higher power?
I think it's our natural wiring, right? We all come from the same source. We're all connected to source. Whether we're consciously aware of it or directly connect with it consciously is, a personal choice. Not everyone, grows up with some sort of religion or spirituality.
But if you
But
have
there's
Black
a
Moon
knowing.
Lilith strong, like in all those people who had Black Moon Lilith conjunct a planet with almost no orb, this sense of a higher oneness or a higher source
Mhm.
in some way is almost always evident in their lives.
No, not necessarily. And I'm finding in the research too that these people who have strong Black Moon Lilith, they will either completely reach out into community and be very humanitarian and um, in a way of connecting with others to bring them to a place of feeling that they are part of something larger than themselves. And I've also found the exact opposite. I have found there are people showing up in my research that literally have locked themselves away in insane asylums or literally disconnected completely from all humankind. So if you think about that, when we go into that space of deep, quiet, 7 by B, to yourself, that's an easy place for people to connect to source, right? To walk into the church when it's empty, or to sit in meditation alone, or to just clear your mind in a space of quiet and solitude. And that's where you feel that divine connection, where you have that personal conversation, on a soul level with yourself or something greater than yourself.
So you're finding maybe about 3 different ways that it gets
Hmm. That it will
expressed.
manifest. Yeah.
And almost everybody will fit into one of those three or
Absolutely.
so
Yep.
ways of expressing it, and fairly conspicuously in their lives.
Yes.
Okay, so does everybody see how the research works? In this case, she wants to know, what does Black Moon Lilith mean? She does an extreme case sampling study to see if they have anything in common that people talk about. She finds this other thing, but you know, it would take a lot more data to have any confidence. So she does all 10 planets, continues to have confidence, sees about 3 different ways it manifests. And then in the process, just looking at charts, she notices something interesting in her own chart and how it works. One of the rules for an evidence-based practice, the American Psychological Association emphasizes this, and the American Medical Association, they both emphasize this. They have both become evidence-based practices over the last 20 to 30 years. This is a new movement. And my idea for astrology is to make astrology an evidence-based practice. One of the principles of an evidence-based practice is you get confidence using modern research methods. That's one part of it. And then a second part is you must apply those ideas to actual clients and see how it works out in actual practice. So in an evidence-based practice, according to the APA and the AMA and other professional organizations, it's not enough that the data shows something. They then want practitioners to use the idea and report back what happens. And usually in applying it, it gives the ideas come alive, like you really can feel them. In the data, it's like data, and you can feel it to some extent, but often it comes alive and you get more refined ideas of how it works in people's lives. And then if the idea is supported by modern research methods and it's working for practitioners and helping them with their clients, then it becomes a recommended therapy. That's the basic procedure. But it does not become a recommended therapy until it's used in actual practice. Now, in medicine, there's a lot of corruption. It's well documented even in the academic research journals. So these things don't always work out as they're supposed to, according to regulations, but that's the idea. So what we're seeing here is Michelle is actually doing both parts of this. And often we're so curious and, we're astrologers, we want to use it. So we naturally start moving into that second part of it. And in doing it, you see how it works. The fact that she is a medium, she does rituals, and it shows up in her strongest vibe, which is based on 7, which further reinforces it. It makes you feel comfortable applying the ideas. The application without the modern research methods is pretty much useless, but it's necessary as an addition to the modern research methods. Did you all follow that? It's very interesting. I mean, there's like a set of rules for how evidence-based practices work. So the fact that you've applied it and we see it, and as astrologers, we get really excited because now we're actually doing charts. That's giving us more confidence in your model because you've also gotten involved in that stage. Now, what happens in previous research projects when the researcher, in this case, Michelle, comes up with her beautiful ideas and her 10 people, then she shares it with the group of us, and then we proceed to slice and dice her to pieces and go through that torturous process. So, and several of us here have been through that torturous process of, your colleagues ripping apart what you're doing because we want to see if it's really there. And usually after, considerable work, it does survive. If, it does survive the peer review. Yes.
What's been amazing about this research too is the symbols that continue to show up. It's always water, which makes sense, right? The moon. It's the it's the apogee of the moon. But the symbol of a cross shows up repetitively, and horses, which
Horses.
are lunar.
Wow.
Hmm. So
Wow.
even back in a lot of, the Greek pantheon, a lot of mythology, the horses are always attached to the moon. They're lunar beings.
Yeah, and what we can do in the final report is you can say, I've taken the top 5 people or whatever it is, for each, times 10 planets, that's 50 people. It's like a lot of people. Um, and then we can actually count how many of those 50 people with each planet have an emphasis, say, in the Wikipedia biography or some other thing, exactly how many mention the word horse or water or whatever. And that way it gets quantified and confirmed rather than taking the researcher's word for it. This is all part of the modern research methods. And if you want to get really carried away with it, you can take um, the people who scored nothing on it and count how many times they show up. And that just confirms that what you're seeing is actually there, that these cross, how many
And
times.
broadcasting, radio, that's the other thing that shows up consistently too. You think about it, the moon is a satellite. Makes
Huh.
sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So we can actually count these things, and then the all of this is just building the model. Then we collect new data, or you go further down the list of the most extreme cases that Michelle has not looked at. Once she takes a peek at it, you can no longer use it. You have to take ones that she has not looked at and then count it up, analyze it, and see if it's confirmed. If it gets confirmed with the additional data, then we have a very high confidence that this is actually true. It's a long process, but again, if Michelle or any of us actually find something and confirm it, you've made a historical discovery. I mean, this is like crazy. Like we're actually confirming with new data that this stuff actually exists. It's phenomenal. So, sometimes there's a phrase, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, which I think is what we're doing if we actually can confirm this. Okay, we're at an hour and a half. We've covered 3 of you. Let me just make a list of who else is here. We won't, oh, I didn't want to go into that. Let's make a list of who else is involved with research in just a topic. Does anybody else want to unmute and just say your name and what the topic is that you want to research or will research or would like to? Anybody else?
Yeah, so I just real quick. So my name's Emmett Williams. I'm working with the Astro Data Bank, kind of approaching it, not looking so much as like, say, like does like moon like square Neptune or whatever, does that lead to creativity? But rather, people who are creative, what sorts of aspects and places do you see in their chart? So kind of abstract, I guess, but just in a nutshell, I guess that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. Yeah, well, there's 2 kinds of research. One is based on the astrology, like who has Black Moon Lilith. The other is based on the person, like what do um, electric guitar players have in their chart, or jazz saxophone players, or musicians in general. So you're doing that kind of research on people who are creative. So you have 2 types. You're looking at the astrology and what are they like, or you're looking at the people and seeing what's in their charts. So this is wonderful. That's the other kind of research. The trick here is how do you define who's creative and how do you not have selection bias? If you pick the people that you think are creative, then it isn't going to tell us much.
Yeah. It's like the creativity is just kind of like an example. I'm using the category labels that come with the charts to narrow down what to pick. I'm also looking at synastry and seeing if like anything shows up there, any patterns in types of relationships. And I've been curious looking at Saturn returns. like I've noticed that like some people might have a return that actually like by degree only lasts for like a couple of months compared to going in and out of orb lasting over like a year,
Yeah.
or however long it is, and wondering if the people who have shorter transits, if they have like certain like aspect profiles or whatever that are different than people who have longer transits.
Yeah. Wow. So much cool stuff we can do, right? I mean, I love all of these. So he's going into Astro Databank, and which has a lot of different categories. So one comment I have about this is there's two ways you can go. One is continue to play, play with these categories, fiddle around. Some people will play with an ideas for 10 years before they get formal about it. And the other is to start getting formal and say, you know what, I'm going to research this category and, I'm going to set up rules and, you know, but the other thing is you can just continue to play and play. The advantage to playing and just moving around is you're completely open. You continue to get new observations. You're collecting more information before you commit yourself to testing out a specific idea. And
David,
basically, you follow your instincts, So at any point where you feel ready, you could say, okay, I'm going to study this group of creative people and look to see if they have some particular things in their charts. Or you don't have to formalize it. Just keep jumping around and playing because that's where the genius happens. That's where, the muses are talking while you're asleep and stuff. So, or a little bit of both. But at some point, you can just say, okay, this is what I want to check out. And
David,
then we can create the signature in the Sirius software or some other software, and we can like do the kind of thing that Michelle is doing, for example, that she explained. So, yeah, Richard.
yeah, I was just going to say both Victoria and I have research in mind, but currently, um, Vicki and I are working on analyzing Vibe 79 and coming up with with a meaning for
A report.
a report for
And
Vibe
it's our
79.
first one, we're doing it together.
And we're doing it with Linda.
Yeah, so you're working with Linda's team, you're meeting with her on Sundays?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So Linda Berry has meetings on Sunday, for every Sunday for people who want to research different vibrations. And so Richard and Vicky are working on vibration 79, and I'm working with that too. After you guys produce a report, I'm going to read it. I've got one that's been waiting for me for a week that I haven't gotten to yet. And Wendy and I meet every Friday, and then I'll review what you're doing. So yeah, so that's very exciting. We have a team of people researching different vibrations, and we can do this with anything that you guys want to do. Like if somebody wants to join together with Starlene on her research or with Greg on his research, whatever, and you can have regular meetings. The vibrational research is nice to break up because there's just all these different vibrations to analyze. So there's that research project going on. We have a lot of things going on, and I'm excited about the progress. So cool. I can't wait to see what we find out about the meanings of these different vibrations. Um,
I'm also researching Sirius and Algol, the stars, which I'll be doing a presentation for. So I'm also doing that. I haven't started that research yet because I'm working on the ADHD right now, but yeah, that will be something I'm going to dig into.
okay,
The extreme case sampling.
right.
Yeah.
You can do a similar procedure as what we talked about with Michelle.
Right.
Maybe just do conjunctions because it's similar to Black Moon Lilith. It's a point out there. I mean,
Right.
this is an actual physical object, and you can design it however you want. Michelle decided to look at just conjunctions to the planets, which is what I also do. I personally prefer having just one thing. Some people like to combine, like to say, I'm gonna combine a bunch of things. I don't like that because then I don't know which one's doing what. But
Right.
anything that feels good to you, as long as you have a consistent set of rules and you think you can come up with a conclusion, works. So yeah, so that's cool. Um, so Emmett, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just picked up Richard and Vicky's point. You're cool. Is there anything else you want to say about that at the moment?
No, I think I'm good. Oh, so the one thing that I do want to add, because last week or not last month rather, um, you and I were like just trying to, or I was trying to troubleshoot why I was getting so few charts regarding epilepsy, and I figured out that it was actually because I wasn't capitalizing it in my search. And when I do that, I get 20. So yeah, so that happened.
I am laughing. Everybody probably knows why I'm laughing because been there, done that, and continue to be there and do. It's these stupid little things that will drive you crazy. And yeah, so and that's why we often like get together um and somebody else says, well, you didn't capitalize it, So yeah, right. So yeah, each software has its own idiosyncrasies, and you just never know what you're running into. But yeah, I've sometimes spend many hours and then finally realize it's something stupid like that. Um, okay. All right, we're at our hour and a half, but we can pick up next month. If anybody wants to mention anything else that they're interested in researching real quickly or already doing, or we can wait till next month.
David?
Yeah,
Yeah. I have three things I wanted to write you about. I think they'd be more articulate than trying to say anything now.
yeah. Go ahead and email me. You all have my email address.
Yeah, at your email.
Yeah, Santino@astrologydc.com, and I'll add it to our discussion. So
Yeah.
what I'm heading towards in these meetings on the fourth, usually Tuesday of each month, is we're going to start doing this. We're going to start, creating these signatures. We can create Greg's. He can let me know exactly how he wants to formulate it. And I can show you how I enter into Sirius software. If any of you use other research software, like Emmett's doing a lot of stuff directly with the Astro Data Bank, like, let's all learn from each other. Let's just see how these things can be done. I'm going to soon be creating uh, some analyses with the R software that for those of us doing extreme case sampling stuff is going to like elevate it to a new level. I'm getting really, really tired of these research methods that I started using sometimes 10 years ago. And I want to start doing decision trees and regression analyses, and it will weight things, and there's like all kinds of cool stuff. So the research methods are gonna get more sophisticated. Everything is gonna get more sophisticated. Um, so yeah. We're just scratching the surface. I mean, we eventually we make these very, very sophisticated tools that can find all the combinations and search through them and everything automatically. So some of these things that where people like Michelle and some of the rest of us, we spend thousands of hours, we can cut that down massively with better software. At least some of the things anyway. Um, okay, I think we're good. Okay. All the Grinches here can stop being Grinches and celebrate the holidays. Right. Well, thank
Thank you,
you
Dave.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is my dream is to get as far as I can with creating a new discipline of evidence-based astrology. I think it's going to happen. I think it's a revolution. I think most astrologers have no idea that this revolution's happening, that we're going to create something that never existed before. And it will go mainstream. The professors and stuff I'm working with, our joke is what they do is much crazier than what I do. I mean, they're nuts, like, Bell's theorem, reality is non-local, and time is a fourth dimension of space. Their ideas are crazy. Astrology is not that far-fetched. We just don't have the data. And once we have the data, they're ready for it. So it's very exciting. Okay, anybody else any words of wisdom before we sign off? All good? Okay. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever. God bless, namaste. Hope to see you next month. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.